Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the dedication ceremony for Phase 1 of the World War II Legacy Memorial. We have a lot to celebrate today. Thank you for joining us and supporting this great cause. I'm Fox 2 meteorologist Rich Luderman. I'm a proud veteran. It is my honor to be here today. This is long overdue, and today we are going to celebrate. All right. I know 45 minutes ago we had a downpour, but how about the blue skies right now, right? Now, the reason we're here is to celebrate our World War II veterans and our Rosies. So before we get started, I get to go down and introduce all of you to our esteemed guests, the reason why we're here. Just bear with us. I'm going down into the audience. You know, when I do weather at night, I'm in front of the green screen, but now I'm actually going down into the audience. One quick announcement, if we could silence cell phones, please, that would be great. That always helps out. And also, if you want to go to the Facebook or website of this great event and take a picture and post that you're here, that's all good as well. Remember, it's the modern world. All right, we're going down. And we're going to do some intros. All right, this is the good stuff. Wait a minute, I got to get one more thing. I got to get it all together here. Now, when I announce your name, if you can, please rise. If not, just raise your hand. Is that fair? That's fair. How about Delphine Clappin? Delphine, Rosie the Riveter, Glenn Martin Aircraft Company, Baltimore, Maryland. How about Virginia Bassler? Rosie Virginia Bassler, all right, right there. Served in the U.S. Coast Guard during World War II. Outstanding. How about Virginia Rush? Rosie Virginia Rush, right there. Republic Air in Detroit. How about Al Landino? Is Al here? Al is right there, right there. Army veteran, World War II. Thank you, Al. How about Art Fishman? Where's Art Fishman? We all know Art Fishman. Art Fishman, U.S. Navy, Pacific Ocean. How about B.L. Little? B.L. Little, World War II vet right here. Thank you, sir. European, African, Middle Eastern theater right there. How about Clifford Alvara? Clifford. There's Clifford right there. Invasion of Normandy, transporting soldiers to the beaches. God bless. How about Clinton McMillan Sr.? Clinton McMillan Sr. Do we have Clinton here? I'm looking, maybe not. Okay, no Clinton. How about George Leland? George Leland. There's George right there. 460th Bomb Group, Italy, B-24 bomber. He flew 28 missions, World War II. Unbelievable. How about George Rossbach? George Rossbach, right there. There's George. Veteran of the European theater. How about Ken Bondi? Ken Bondi, right there. Ken Bondi. That's a great yellow shirt. That's a great yellow shirt. Army Air Force European theater. How about Ty Perkins? Ty Perkins. Where's Ty Perkins? There's Ty Perkins. U.S. Navy, the Pacific Theater. How about William McKettrick? William McKettrick. William McKettrick. Well, definitely a round of applause. No William today, not today. How about William Rosenai? There he is right there. I know you, sir. He was on Fox 2. That guy was on Fox 2. He's going to be doing weather this weekend. Just stay tuned. Bill was a World War II vet in Europe. How about Bill Burt? Bill Burt, is Bill here today? Bill Burt? Is How about Richard McLaughlin? Richard McLaughlin, World War II vet in the Pacific. There he is. You know this guy. 100th birthday a week ago. 100th birthday a week ago. You want to sing happy birthday real fast? Let's do it. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Bill. Happy birthday to you. All right, all right. Dick McLaughlin. How about Mark Heckler? Mark Heckler. Where's Mark? There's Mark right there. Mark Heckler. Served in Germany at the end of the war. And Francis Masters, or Rosie. Francis Masters. Francis Masters. Willow Run. God bless you. Now here's an important question. Is there someone 101 years old? Now here's an important question. Is there somebody we left out? Is there someone here that we should acknowledge from World War II or Rosie? Is there someone we should acknowledge? Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. We got to do this right. We're going back down. Wait a minute. We're going back down. Partly cloudy. Chance of showers. Please tell us your name, sir. Yes? Wow. On the beaches of Normandy. Thank you, brother. Thank you for your father's service. Thank you. All right, now we're getting started here. I'm worn out. I got to do TV at 6 o'clock tonight, I'll tell you. Never ends. It never ends. Now it's time for the American Legion Frank Wendland Post 253 to post the colors, and we will then hear from our soloist Christine Wist with a beautiful rendition of the national anthem. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the presentation of colors and remain standing for the singing of the national anthem, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. And hut! Christine Wist is going to give us our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It is my privilege to bring to the podium the Most Reverend Walter Hurley, Bishop Emeritus of Grand Rapids, for the invocation. Detail 2. Detail. Left, face. Forward.
O good and loving God, we come today with humble and grateful hearts to celebrate and remember the Michigan men and women who served with sacrifice and dedication during World War II. We come to dedicate this Michigan World War II Legacy Memorial to the memory of those who served in the military and of those who served on the home front to protect our freedoms. Today we pray that this place may be a place of inspiration for future generations, reminding all of the patriotism, the self-sacrifice, and the devotion to freedom that are at the root of peace in a deeply troubled world. Today we come again and remember and commend to your love and mercy, O loving God, the 620,000 Michigan residents who served in the armed forces, over 15,000 of whom never came home and lie in the military cemeteries in Europe, or whose names are listed on the tablets of the missing. We celebrate and remember those who fought valiantly to protect our rights and establish peace. And we commend to your love and mercy those who labored at home and front in manufacturing and related industries to support the men and women of war. Bless those here today and those who will come to visit this sacred space. Help them to be inspired by those who have gone before them, whose memory we honor in this place of rest and peace. We are grateful, O God, to those who have brought us to this day and place with their labor, this day and place with their labors and financial support. May we continue to build on what they have begun, to help others always to remember and to be inspired by the sacrifices of others. Send us your peace, O God, in our day, and above all, help us to remember to love one another as you have loved us. And in your name we pray. Amen.
Please take your seats. If you turn to the right to see for the first time at the memorial the raising of the flags, and we're going to ask that members of the armed forces and veterans stand when their song is played. We're going to start off with the Coast Guard. Any Coasties here? Coast Guard, we love you. also want to remember the Merchant Marines as well. One more time, I'm going to ask you to stand. We want to ask that all of our veterans here today stand one last time to be recognized. Thank you all. Thank you all. Men and women, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Now I ask for a moment of silence for those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. Let us always remember them and the incredible sacrifice they made for each and every one of us. Thank you. Now we're going to ask that all of our elected officials, past and present, who are with us today, please stand to be recognized. Elected officials, past and present, come on. Thank you all for being here today to support this statewide memorial. And finally, we should remember that there are those out there today on the front lines of our nation. And of course, we remember them all over the world. How about a round of applause for active duty? It is now my pleasure to introduce to you our first speaker, John Mayton, president of the Michigan WWII Legacy Memorial. John, come on.
Welcome to the dedication of the Michigan WWII Legacy Memorial. It's been a long road, but today we celebrate this first phase. I'd like to thank all of you for coming here today, but especially those members of our greatest generation. Thank you. I have learned so much from them, not just factual knowledge, but about perseverance, humility, and sacrifice. I thought if I could summarize this memorial in one word, what would it be? And the word that kept coming back to me was connection. How does this memorial help us do that? The statue of the soldier reading a letter from home in the memorial exemplifies this in many ways. Those letters were the instrument that allowed the soldiers and the family to stay connected as best they could. Go read the plaque on the statue. It contains a quote for a soldier that says, in part, "I can't even start to explain how much a letter means over here. Just keep the letters coming and I'll do the rest." The letter was from Corporal Bud Irish of Hemlock, Michigan, and his letters were compiled into a book by his daughter, Therese, who is here today, who came from Idaho to be here for this dedication. Another connection to the statue, the sculptor, Larry Halbert, used his father as the model for that statue. So Larry, in honor of his father, designed that statue for him. So another connection across the generations that Larry had helped us make. And eventually, we hope that there's a sister statue to that that'll be about in this location here when we raise the funds, and it will be the parents of that soldier. And the reason we put it over here is to represent the distance between the home front and the war front, but that continuous connection that they had by way of their letters. Another connection it makes is across the generations. As we laid down these paver bricks, we read the stories of the greatest generation. As we watch people find the brick of loved ones, we see the emotions swell and the memories come to life. You don't even have to even know the person in these bricks to feel a connection to them. We've watched wives, children, grandchildren come reflect and remember. While the bricks are red and gray in physical color, they represent a colorful and vibrant mosaic. I've learned more about World War II by reading those bricks than I could ever learn in school. While this memorial is in Royal Oak, it is for the state of Michigan. We're well known for being the arsenal of democracy, but the entire state contributed in so many ways. The milk reprocessing plant in Petoskey producing the fill for life preservers, the Kellogg plant making rations, Willow Run turning out a bomber every hour. The list goes on, but the history is a legacy that connects everyone from Michigan. We've had the honor of not only connecting with members of the generation, but also with so many great people and companies that share our passion and help bring this together. We've had a great partnership with UAW Ford, which recognizes the impact of World War II on labor. We had hundreds of individual contributions on the Michigan Voluntary Contribution Tax Form, thanks to Steve Beta and Marty Nolenberg getting us on that. We received a grant from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, thanks to Senator Mallory McMorrow and Representative Jim Ellison. We had 3 companies come together, Acker Grinding, Allen Machine, and Richcoat, to make a significant donation. Some donors wish to remain anonymous, but we want to thank them for their contributions as well. So here alone, we have private donors, companies, unions, and government entities connecting together to help us tell the stories of Michigan. We've also had Dignity Memorial, Hollywood Markets, Jack and Annette Aronson, Tom Luchik make generous contributions. Much of the landscaping you see around here was a result of a grant from Home Depot, and the labor to put that in was provided by Home Depot associates and many other volunteers. I'd love to go on, and I also want to thank everybody who's purchased a brick, but we have to go on with the dedication. Another way that we raise funds for phase 1 is by sponsorship of different elements. So the military flags, we currently have 5 of them sponsored. The Air Force flag, sponsored by Rhoda Weiss, who lives in California, but grew up in Michigan and always wants to do great things for Michigan. The Army flag by the Michigan Sons of the Revolution. The Marine Corps flag, sponsored by the Daughters of the American Revolution of Michigan. The Navy flag, sponsored by the Senior Men's Club Foundation. And the Space Force flag, sponsored by myself and my wife, Judy. Another part of the memorial design are boulders. Another part of the memorial design are the boulders you see at either end there, which contain significant quotes from World War II and what we call the War on Words. In this first phase there are 2, and there will be many more in future phases around the park. These boulders were donated by the Rock Shop, and in phase 1 of these boulders is sponsored by the family of Jess Soltis. The second boulder is sponsored by Tom Luckix and the family of Fred Hollis. So I want to end my remarks now because we obviously want to get on with the ceremony, but thank you all for coming today.
John, thank you. Next is our Oakland County Executive, Dave Coulter. Dave.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, thank you. I want to welcome you to Oakland County and the great city of Royal Oak. But as John said, this isn't an Oakland County memorial. This isn't a Southeast Michigan memorial. This is a memorial for all of the state of Michigan, which is, after all, the arsenal of democracy. And we need to remember that, because what does that mean? That means that when times get tough and the challenges are great, people from Michigan rise up and do what it takes to get the job done. That's what it means to be the arsenal of democracy, and that's who we are. And the sacrifices that were made by our veterans to win the great war were immeasurable. And we can't thank them enough. But we're not here to thank them so much as we're here to remember them, because we are at a unique moment in history. This memorial really can't come soon enough. When we were here about 1.5 years ago, there were about 5,900 World War II veterans in the state of Michigan still with us. We know 1.5 years later that number is less, and every day we lose another of our World War II veterans. Soon they will no longer be with us. But they will always be with us in spirit and in our heart. And we will always have a place here on 13 Mile and Woodward to come. So that if we ever worry about forgetting who they were or what they did or what it meant, we can come and reflect in this wonderful place what it was that they were about. And I want to say this as well. Well, let me say, John, I want to thank you and the entire team. This has been a 10-year labor of love. Give it up for John and all of the people who have helped us get to this day. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that they're still accepting donations for phase 2, so don't forget about that. But I'm going to close by simply saying this. We honor those today and we remember those today who fought in war, but we recommit and rededicate ourselves to what they fought for, which is peace. That is what we're here today for, to recommit ourselves to the peace that they gave their lives and their sacrifices for. I personally can't believe that in my lifetime there is another invasion of Europe that we are involved in, at least financially at this point. It is unacceptable, but as long as Michigan is the arsenal of democracy and America is the beacon of freedom, we will fight for peace across the globe as long as we live. So thank you very much for being here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dave Coulter. Next to the podium, please welcome Jocelyn Benson, 43rd Secretary of State of Michigan.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you for letting me steal your seat also. So, thank you. So I'm really proud to be here today because I've seen this memorial grow. I've overheard conversations about the work that went into today and will go into the future because my husband, Sergeant Ryan Friedrich, serves on the board. So thank you, Ryan, for your work and all the work that goes on behind the scenes from the board and the supporters to bring today into reality. So I stand before you today, certainly on behalf of the state of Michigan, thanking everyone for bringing this to fruition, but I'm also here as an Army spouse and as a mom, and as someone who has visceral memories of what it was like the day Ryan left to serve and left Michigan and become an active duty member of the infantry. And that day, one of the most visceral memories to me was not just seeing the moms and the wives and the spouses and the kids say goodbye to their dads and their parents and their spouses and partners as they left for unknown circumstances, never knowing in many cases if they'd see them again, which was very real. But I saw that sacrifice firsthand, and then I drove home that morning back to my home, and I remember driving along and thinking about all the people who were driving on that road alongside me who hadn't witnessed the goodbyes that I just witnessed and the unknowns that so many loved ones were heading into on behalf of serving the state of Michigan and our country. And I thought, all these folks aren't thinking about these sacrifices, these very real sacrifices that our families are making in this moment, on this morning, on behalf of everyone here in our democracy. And what can remind them of that sacrifice on those busy mornings where we're rushing about, well, memorials like this. And I'm so proud that now so many families will be driving down the road and driving down Woodward and see this memorial as they go as a reminder of that sacrifice, the sacrifice borne by families generations before us, and right now as so many are serving here and home and overseas and into the future as well. So that's what this memorial represents to me as a military spouse and as the Michigan Secretary of State, a reminder to all of us of the ongoing and never-ending sacrifice that so many of you here today as service members of veterans and your families have made, and that so many who aren't here have made and make every day. That's what this memorial will stand as a reminder of. And finally, as a mom who drives my kid to school alongside this very road, now we get to tell him, our son, the story of what these flags represent, what this memorial represents, what this sacrifice is represented there that we all must make on behalf of the democracy and the country and the freedoms we hold dear. So thank you to all of you who have served. Thank you to all of whom who have sacrificed, even just to bring today to a reality. And I echo the ask as well to say those of you who join with us in recognizing the importance of this memorial on this crucial stretch of drive in our state, to help us invest and grow it even more so that we can collectively ensure that the stories and sacrifices that have brought us here today and made Michigan the arsenal of democracy will continue to be told in very real ways to everyone who drives along Woodward and throughout the state of Michigan. So thank you, and on behalf of the state of Michigan, I'm proud to say we'll continue supporting this memorial, and grateful to Senator McMorrow and Representative Representative Ellison and all who worked to ensure funding came through for this great representation of all who served. Thank you.
Jocelyn, thank you. Thank you. Now please welcome to the podium United States Congresswoman representing Michigan's 6th Congressional District, Debbie Dingel. Debbie.
Thank you, Rich. Rich does a great job. And you know what? He's not just here today. He's there for the veterans every single day. I see him at veterans events all year long, and I want to thank Rich for what he does, standing up for the veterans. Well, it's the truth. And John and everybody, I'm looking at all these great state reps over here who have supported you and all of the veterans here, and things don't happen unless community comes together. And I really want to thank you, the whole board, everybody out there, and the state legislators who are incredible in knowing that we needed to do this. So thank you. Thank you for that. And I'm glad to be here with my other fellow electeds. I had lunch with Dave last Friday and said, you know, they asked me to speak, but I feel sort of funny because it's Oakland County. And I do represent a part of Oakland County now. But I didn't, and everybody said to me, this isn't Oakland County, it's Michigan. It's the World War II Memorial for Michigan. And I said, as most of you, many of you know, I was married to a World War II veteran. There was an age difference. But I'm no longer, I'm not old, but I'm a little seasoned too. And I'm gonna start to cry because being here today is touching me more than you'll ever know. If you ever to ask him what title mattered to him the most, he didn't care that he was a congressman, he didn't care that he was a husband, he was a great husband. The title he was the proudest of was veteran. And like so many World War II veterans, John had an amazing history, by the way. He was on the floor, he was a page, when President Roosevelt stood on the floor of the House and called this the Day of Infamy. And by the way, John Boehner, Republic, this is not a partisan day. This is a day we all remember that we are Americans. And we need to remember we're Americans a lot more. I want to say that. That flag is something we're all proud of and stands for. And we need to remind every generation of what that flag stands for. And the World War II vets can remind us better than anybody. It's true. It's true. But we only have a recording of what Franklin Delano Roosevelt, John Boehner told me this because John Dingel did what he wasn't supposed to do. He taped it. And they told him to turn off the tape, and we have that tape because of John Dingel. Then when he turned 18, he enlisted. You know, he never, like most of the World War II veterans who are still with us and have been, many of our families have benefited, they didn't talk a lot about the war. They knew what they were fighting for. They have their memories, and they didn't talk about it. But I was lucky enough to go to Normandy for the 50th anniversary of D-Day. And I walked that beach with a veteran from Michigan who was part of a National Guard troop. And he said, Mrs. Dingel, would you walk this beach with me? I'm like, what? I'm not gonna walk this beach? Of course I am with him. And he was part of the troop that was in the first wave, that was set in to make that beach safe for other military to land. Unless you've been there, you don't understand. The Germans were right there at a cliff, and they had put mines and put all kinds of wire in there to make it not safe. Michiganders were in that first wave and kept it safe for the rest that were coming in, and some gave their life. And you can't not talk about the Rosies. The Rosies are my girls. I love them. They opened the door wider for all of us. They were the backbone of the arsenal of democracy at Willow Run, but around the country, and I'm so proud of them. You know, we know we're not supposed to talk about women's age, but I've been to the birthday party of all of them, and all of them are 100 or older. I won't tell you how old they are. They're incredible, and they've got more energy and more spirit. We've had 2 honor flags. We celebrate the They're incredible. We've had 2 honor flights. What's great is when, and I've with Bob and Elizabeth Dole and John Bennett at the World War II Memorial in Washington and welcomed veterans from around the country and many Michigan veterans when they came there. But we've had 2 honor flights with the Rosies. One of them was this year. And I'll tell you what, they wouldn't listen to a word that I said. I was scared to death. One of them was going to slip. I wanted them. They're like, Debbie, leave us alone. We're running and walking and dancing. And it's their energy that inspires all of us as well. And the other stories that the previous speaker spoke about. You know why this memorial matters? It's the stories. It's the memories. We need to remind all generations what the men and women who won one of the most important moments in history, protecting our freedoms, our democracy, fighting against atrocities that were happening in labor camps and Jewish camps and what we're watching again in America. We cannot let them divide us. We cannot let them challenge democracy anywhere. And the World War II veterans showed us what it means to fight for those freedoms. We need to make sure that every American remembers their stories and their legacies, and that we remember them. Thank you for all who did this. And I'm gonna buy a brick. Nobody asked me, but I'm buying a brick until today.
Debbie, thank you. Thank you for those words. We welcome to the podium Adam Hollier, Director, Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency, to the podium.
Clearly, I drew the short straw coming after that. But from a practical standpoint, it's my job all day, every day to think about veterans. And when we think about this memorial, I like to think about it in 3 ways, right? We are recognizing the people and remembering their stories and talking about them. Then we are talking about what they did this for. Why did they leave? When you talk to somebody who enlists and raised their right hand and said, hey, send me over them, they do it for all kinds of reasons. And we should be thinking about those. We should be telling those stories. And then the last piece is, what is our responsibility to those individuals who have served? And so today, I hope you'll go on a little bit of journey with me. My father's elementary school teacher was a World War II vet. He was a Tuskegee Airman, and his name was Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Jefferson. And so when my dad had Colonel Jefferson in school, he was just his elementary school teacher. We didn't talk to World War II vets the way that we do today, right? So if I'm in uniform, somebody knows us, so they say, little kids come over and say, hey, thank you for your service. We, you know, moms, everyone did that. They didn't do that then. People didn't talk about their service, and so we lost so many of these folks' service. And I remember being able to watch on TV as President Obama was recognizing all these Tuskegee Airmen for their service, because their mission was not just victory abroad. It was the double victory campaign, for folks who were aware. It was this idea that we were fighting for victory abroad and at home, for all the discrimination, all these different issues that we were going through. And it wasn't just black or white. It wasn't just men, women. The folks who came back from World War II had a greater understanding about what equity looked like, what our democracy could be, and a commitment to making that a reality. And so as you think about those people who have served, think about the world that they built, because I'm grateful that I get an opportunity to live in it. Because they saw a world and said, no, my country can be better than that. It's going to be better than that, and I'm going to do it. You talk about the motivations that they had coming back and building these lives. They didn't talk about their service. They just came back and worked. They quietly went back to communities and built houses, built a middle class. They did all of these things that we talk about. They made things happen around healthcare, around housing, around everything that we take for granted, the things that are our staples in our community. You can look back and say, oh, you know what? A World War II vet probably did that. And you would be right. And so you say to yourself, what is our obligation to their memory? The first is that we remember, and that's why we're here, to recognize this, to honor that legacy, but to tell their stories. And to remember that for all those that we still have, we have an obligation to do. My very first thing I did when I got this job was I went down to the Dingel VA, and, right, the Dingel VA, and we recognized a 104-year-old World War II vet. And he got out of the Army, or out of the Navy, I should say, when he was 22. He applied for veterans benefits when he was 98. So imagine, for example, that you did your taxes and you got your tax return 76 years later. How upset would you be? He wasn't. He was grateful for the time he served. He didn't ask for anything, but I had to remind him that we made him a promise that we would take care of him. And we have not done a good job as a state, as a nation, of taking care and honoring that promise. And so, as a nation, folks like the Congresswoman passed the PACT Act 2 years ago. And the reason it's so important that oh yeah, let's clap it up for PACT Act. People didn't know that they were eligible. They didn't know that they were eligible for all these benefits. The deadline was, until recently, that's what I was going to say. Man, that's cool. See, thunder stealing, but it's fine. If anybody was going to do it, it'd be her. Totally worth it. But so, you have until Monday, the 14th, to file your claim or file your intent to claim. I know there are VSOs in the room. If you're a VSO, please raise your hand. Anybody? Okay. Anywho, if you need to, make sure that your parents, your friend, your cousin, your aunt, your uncle are getting the benefits that they are entitled to. This is not some handout. This is something you earned, and that you have an obligation to remind everyone who has served that this is how we take care of them. So till Monday, you can do this. And we should encourage everybody to take advantage of the benefits that they have earned, because that is how we honor our service members. By saying thank you. Thank you's great. We do these memorials so that it is an active reminder that when we go to somebody like Art, we say, hey Art, thank you. We owe you this part, but we are also going to do our part. And so that's how we do our part. The last piece is telling their stories. We lost too many people before they had a chance to tell their story. While you still have these folks in front of you, make sure that they tell a story. MVA has launched our I Am a Veteran, I Serve campaign to capture those stories. And so if we missed somebody who served, you can still tell their stories. But the way that we honor a legacy is by telling these stories and making them real. Because there are too many people who did amazing things who never told you, right? Like we know Band of Brothers and the 101st because they had a great book and a great movie. But there are lots of people who had great stories that we aren't telling, and you need to tell them so that as a state, we can honor them and keep that, because that is our responsibility to the people who have served, is to say, we remember you and we continue to tell your story. So you have two tasks: find your veterans and tell their story, bring them to us, we'll keep them. And secondly, to make sure that everyone you know who has served has signed up for their PACT Act stuff, because they are entitled to benefits that we should be taking care of. Thank you.
Adam, thank you. I'm going to bring back up John Mayton, president of the World War II Legacy Memorial. John, come on back.
Okay, before we do the official dedication, I'd first like to introduce the board and ask them to come up here and stand with me, as well as some of our other significant contributors on the team here. So we have on the board Chris Gravelin, Kim Jones, Mike Mastantono, Ryan Friedrichs, Debbie Hollis, Russell Levine, my wife Judy Mayton. We also have our architect, Michael Gordon of MGA Architects, and our contractor, Michael Hall of RCI Contracting Services. We also have the sculptors. Larry Halbert couldn't be here today, but the person that finished the sculpting, Oleg Kedria, is here, as well as Ben Castle from Fine Art Sculpture. So please stand and be recognized. Okay, I'd like the ask the board to stay standing, board and Michael and Michael, to remain standing as we do the dedication of this first phase. Art, would you please join me? So Art, on behalf of the board of the Michigan World War II Memorial and all of our supporters, we dedicate this phase 1 of the Michigan World War II Memorial to the veterans of World War II. Thank you.
Thank this board for the honor and privilege allowing me to represent World War II Legacy Memorial veterans and the comments of whom we dedicate this memorial to. On their behalf, I accept this ground today for them, okay? Around 10 years ago, I stood on this land with Debbie House and Rich Ludeman. They told me what their plans were to be to build this legacy for World War II in this area. I had to visualize and think about what they told me. All right. Being a World War II Navy veteran serving in the Pacific, I was encouraged by them to participate. I've been in Washington, D.C. on the honor flight, see National World War II Memorial. Now this had to be my next goal. But would I live long enough to see that? Yes. I've seen it happen, and as you walk on these bricks, you're walking with the greatest generation. Thank you.
The one thing I failed to mention is we have a maquette up here that could be one of our future phases representing the Navy in honor of Art's dedication here. So thank you for that. Okay, and now we asked our Debbie Hollis, who has been on the board for how many years? Many years, and loves the veterans as all of us do. But Debbie, demonstrates it every single day to us. So I asked Debbie to dedicate it on behalf of the home front.
Thank you, John. I'm going to introduce Frances Masters. Frances, you want to come up here and join me? 101 years young. I think you heard that earlier. Okay. So, Frances, on behalf of the board of the Michigan World War II Legacy Memorial and on behalf of a grateful nation, we are happy to dedicate this memorial to the home front workers of World War II.
Thanks, everybody. Not only for myself, for all the Rosies that are here and throughout the United States, including Marilyn Monroe. She was a Rosie. She was a Rosie. They didn't see me vote for her. So they skipped me and picked her. So, well, anyway. Right after high school, I heard they were building a plant in Willow Run. So I jumped at the chance. I said, I want to help the American people. We want to win this war. I had two brothers in the service. My future husband was in the Marines, and he served in Iwo Jima, Guadalcanal, and all the South Pacific. And I'm honoring him. Yeah. And my oldest brother, he served in the Battle of the Bulge. He never came back to that. No. So I did my job riveting airplanes, B-24s. I did it on the press, small press. But then they loaded me to another department. It was metal around the motor. And I had to use those great big motors, air guns they call them. Well, I lost about 10 pounds and gained 20 muscles. But I did that throughout the war, and I would do it again. I have no regrets. And my motto to young people is hard work and common sense. Thank you, everybody.
And likewise, we have the Rosie the Riveter statue up here, the maquette, which again could be additional statue for one of the future phases next to the one of the hidden areas over there by the Joe statue. So this is a representative of what that statue would look like. So again, thank you. I'd now like to call up Melanie Macie, Mayor-Pro-Tem of the City of Royal Oak. I'm honored as a Royal Oak resident to be here in Memorial Park, and often people look and say, where's the memorial in Memorial Park? And if people don't really know some of the history, these oak trees that are planted in this oval around here were really the original memorial in Memorial Park. They were planted in the late 40s as a gift from England in honor of those that served from Royal Oak in the area in the war. But there's never really been a memorial in Memorial Park other than that. Today, we're fixing that. So city has graciously let us use this land, and now it's a part of Memorial Park, and now we entrust the care of this memorial to the city.
Thank you, John. Talk about stealing some thunder, that's everything I have to say. So thank you to John and to Debbie, to the entire board. Thank you to Mr. Fishman and Ms. Masters. It's really an immense honor for the city of Royal Oak to be chosen as the site for the Michigan World War II Legacy Memorial. So back in 1949, this park was dedicated as a memorial to those who made the ultimate sacrifice in World War II. The circle of slender young oaks, 20 of them, nurtured from acorns from England's Royal Oak, were planted here as a permanent tribute to the 118 Royal Oak neighbors we lost in the war. Today, 15 of those original trees still stand tall around you in what's been designated as Memorial Grove. Today, we move beyond that modest memorial initiated almost 75 years ago, honoring Royal Oakers, to this beautiful spot that will honor all of Michigan, honoring all the sacrifices that are made, making sure that they are remembered, and providing an opportunity to educate future generations, as has been mentioned by so many of our speakers. Kudos to the Michigan World War II Legacy Board of Directors, as well as the dedicated volunteers and the generous donors who have showed remarkable vision and commitment in bringing this project to fruition. Your accomplishment makes us all exceedingly proud. And I would also like to acknowledge again Royal Oakers State Rep Jim Ellison and Senator Mallory McMorrow for their dedicated work in securing $50,000 that allowed us to move forward for this new phase of the memorial. So it's with profound pride today that I represent the residents of Royal Oak and accept the honor of stewarding this memorial. We look forward to welcoming you, your families, and all of Michiganders here to honor our sacrifices made in the past. We do not take this responsibility lightly. We pledge to maintain it with unwavering respect for you and for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. Thank you. All right, how about Jim Rose? Come on, Jim. Jim Rose, our soloist. Now we're going to sing God Bless America and America the Beautiful?
No.
We're doing God Bless America.
That's right.
Now, Ty Perkins, is he coming up as well?
Ty is going to come up. I'll take it.
I give it to you. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, my
Thank
friend.
you, sir.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to sing God Bless America for you first through, and then my friend, World War II veteran, 96-year-old Ty Perkins will join me, and we'll sing it all together, standing as a group, the second time through. As the storm clouds gather far across the sea, let us all be faithful to a land that's free. Let us all be grateful for a land that's so fair as we raise our voices in this solemn prayer. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her
Jim Rose, great job. Ty Perkins, great job. All right, John, closing remarks, and then we're going to have our benediction.
Okay, it's the last time you have to listen to me today. So, you've heard the term first phase many times already. We're not done. We're just beginning. If you look at the sign here, you see what the full memorial design looks like. We need your help. We need companies such to recognize their legacy and help us continue our story. Here we are. Is it ironic that we are next to a Jeep dealer for the Michigan World War II Memorial? So anybody from Jeep out there, we welcome your contributions. I also worked at Willow Run for 35 years as GM, and I teared up a little bit as Frances was speaking because I probably walked the same aisles and places that she spent during those war years, and it's really very special. GM and Ford obviously helping to make up that arsenal democracy as well. Also other companies such as Kellogg, Steelcase, and others in Michigan that have a legacy in World War II. Please help us remember that and work with us as our partners. We get a question a lot about when is phase 2, and it really depends on you and others to help us raise the funds to do it. So as Dave mentioned, we are still accepting donations, and Dave, we are accepting donations. And we'd like to do this again from across the state, mayors from across the state, counties, whatever. We want everybody represented and be a part of this in the future. Buried just beneath the surface in the middle of that, you see that black mulch pile. Below that is the foundation for the Wall of Stars. That Wall of Stars is a 10-foot high, 50-foot long granite wall. Behind Joe, there will be stars representing the 15,458 Michigan lives lost in the armed services during the war. On the backside facing woodward is a map of the world showing the different theaters that Michigan contributed to. There are also a couple more statue platforms or foundations buried there within the current memorial, just waiting for us to raise the funds to put more statues on there, such as our Rosie the Riveter and our Sailor statue. This could be built in a very short time. This is taking a long time for us to get here, but now we have this momentum. Let's keep adding pieces and pieces to this as fast as we can. They represent these new other statue scenes represent the sea and air and include statues, as I mentioned, Rosie, the Tuskegee Airmen, and children picking milkweed from Petoskey, as well as other statues. Next year is the 80th anniversary of D-Day. We'd love to be able to announce the next phase, and with your help, we can do it. Thank you.
So I found out a very awesome coincidence. We overlooked a veteran. We did not know he was here, and he just told me he was on the very first honor flight trip that I took back in 2008. Philip Flegel, World War II veteran, over here. Please give him a round of applause.
I'd like to bring to the podium Rabbi Michael Moskowitz of Temple Shir Shalom, West Bloomfield, to give the benediction. Sir.
As we learn in Psalms and Scriptures, Zehayom Asa Adonai Nagilav Nismechavo, this is a day that God has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. The sun is shining. Our meteorologist, Rich, was surprised to see that. When you put the bishop and a rabbi together on the stage, what do you think is going to happen? I should do the reporting of weather. Before we pray, a quick thank you personally to my very close friend, Arthur Fishman, for asking me and including me in this beautiful and significant occasion, for being one of my heroes. Always reminding us of our priorities and our values, the perspective we need to maintain in finding positivity in our lives and our world. 10 years ago, he came to me and said, I'm too busy. They want me to do this thing in Royal Oak, a Michigan honor for the legacy of World War II and remembering all. He's like, I have so much on my hands, but I got to do it. That's Art Fishman, my friends. A beautiful inspiration to all of us. And thank you, Art, for asking me to be part of this today. Our God and God of all of our ancestors, may you, the eternal source of compassion and peace, bless this sacred moment of remembrance. With hearts full of gratitude, We honor the brave men and women who answered a call of duty from Michigan, from all over the sacred land, sacrificing their lives for the cause of freedom. Their courage and selflessness shall forever be etched in our collective memory. As we gather before this memorial, may its presence forever serve as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the triumph of hope over despair. May it be a solemn reminder of the price of peace and that we must strive tirelessly to ensure that such conflicts are never repeated. In the face of darkness and destruction, we find solace in the enduring light of unity and of compassion. May this memorial be a beacon of hope, guiding future generations toward a world where conflicts are resolved through dialogue and understanding, where the bonds of love and respect transcend the barriers that divide us. May the words shared this afternoon, this entire dedication, inspire us to embrace the values of justice, equality, and freedom, and to work tirelessly towards a world where every life is cherished and every person is afforded the dignity they deserve. And let us say, as the psalmist taught, Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Behold how good and beautiful it is that brothers and sisters can gather together in peace. And let us say, Amen.
Rabbi, thank you. And now we're going to retire the colors. American Legion, Frank Wendland, post 253. That is your job. And hunt! Move! Hunt! Grace. Now I do want to thank everyone for coming and thank Mother Nature for cooperating this afternoon.